And we are live. Welcome to the start of our spring training previews here on the Bullpen Cart presented by ThunderblogSports.com. I could not be more excited to start our divisional previews. And as per tradition, we start with the American League East. And of course, to preview the division of his beloved Boston Red Sox is my man, Greg the Prophet Piatelli. How are you, my man?
I'm excited. I'm jazzed up. This was the best division in all of baseball in 2018, and it's not even up for debate, with 3 teams that won 90 and 2 teams that won over or 100 or above. No other division had that, aka best division in all of baseball. Pumped to get the bullpen cart back and going for the 2018 World Series champions, Boston Red Sox. Ever heard of them?
Yeah, first I was afraid you were going to say the 2018 season. I was like, oh, Greg, man, you forgot who won in 2018, but you covered it. Yeah, Greg, we
who
start
won in 2018 season?
That's true. No, I mean the World Series is then too. 2018 is a good year for Boston.
That's what I'm saying. Who won the 2018 season? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. You mean 2018 the year?
You said. I thought you were going to say 2018 season.
You said the 2018. You paused, and I thought you were going to say 2018 MLB season. But I was going to say, Greg, come on, man. It's a big deal for you. But
wait, who won the 2018 MLB season?
The Boston Red Sox.
Okay, and who won the World Series?
The Boston Red Sox.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
Yeah. One seed in life. I
was confused where you're trying to go with that. Anyway.
All right. Well, we listened to the tape. You paused and almost sound like you said 2018 season. I stand on that corner. But anyway, yes, you're absolutely right. The best division of baseball last year, and I think as we'll get into, we are probably going to see a very similar result. One team that had a nice end to the season that we watched very closely throughout September. It'll be really interesting to see where they go. But we start with a team that finished 47-115 last year, traded away a number of different players to get some prospects and assets back at the trade deadline. The Baltimore Orioles, Greg, is where we begin. And, it doesn't look like it's going to be a fantastic year for the Orioles. They are projected, I'm looking on OddsShark here. Their over-under number is set at 60. And let's take a look at why. Obviously, they traded away Manny Machado at the deadline last year. They traded away Kevin Gausman in the offseason. A number of different guys that they let walk too. And Adam Jones walked. They picked up a few different guys, though. They picked up Jonathan Villar. They signed him to avoid arbitration. I'm sorry. They picked up Eric Young Jr. to a minor league contract, which I'm not sure if that'll make a huge difference. But Greg, what are your thoughts on this team? Not a ton of huge names coming into Baltimore, but are we destined to see another really bleak season, or what are you thinking?
So I'm going to need you to explain to me, because I've never had a team that has openly gone through a rebuild and just openly done nothing in the offseason, which is what the Orioles did, basically. Yeah, they went after some young pieces, but they didn't get them. Like that kid Mesa, who signed with the Marlins, right? Mesa. Yep. So for me, the you're going to have to explain that to me, because none of my teams have openly gone through we're going to do nothing and just rebuild on our young guys. So I don't really know. Is your fan base, how do you draw people? And quite frankly, there are going to be a bunch of names that no one really will know, but you play enough, you play every day, who knows? You could turn around and find some diamonds, find some gems, and hopefully Chris Davis. I mean, you can't possibly be worse than what he did last year, right? We're talking about a guy who hit 40 home runs one year, and last year he struck out I would say 70% of the time.
Yeah, Greg, we're talking about a guy who bars in Baltimore, if you remember this, I believe it was a Bleacher Creature, were giving out free shots for every hit this guy got because it got so bad for them. Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you look at this team and where they were at, even just kind of, I don't think they're ever really hanging around. And I mean, they're over under set at saying they're going to lose 100 games again. So I don't know if we look at them, if, there's really an opportunity for them to really improve. They have that. They still have pitching staff, and I mean, this is a team that finished in dead last in terms of ERA, homers allowed, WHIP. I mean, it's pretty bleak there. But I mean, in terms of guys that they're bringing back, it's not really a large list of names and guys that are really, like you said, going to be putting asses in seats. You trade away Machado, you trade away Jonathan Schoop, and a number of these guys. I mentioned they re-signed Villar and to avoid arbitration. They re-signed Dylan Bundy. Love saying that name to also avoid arbitration. But I wouldn't be surprised though if that's a guy that they try to, if they try to ship, like they did with Gosman. I mean, really, they're not going to have a ton to really dish out there. I mean, Bundy, I say all of that, and he went 8-16 last year. I mean, he was doing okay. He had a really bad September. Greg, his record in his last 10 games was 1-6, and I mean, his ERA spiked up almost a full point. His WHIP spiked up almost a tenth of a point, and even the worst was his opponent's batting average went from 250 to 275. So, I mean, I don't know if that's something that we're at the point where it's just a bleak situation. You're playing the Red Sox twice in those last 10 games, the Yankees, who we can talk about them in a minute in the lineup. They have Rays Watch 2018. He had to face in the midst of where he got absolutely shelled by them, and another loss that he actually didn't pick up, but the team did lose against the Astros. So, I mean, that's probably the biggest issue for them is that they do have to play in, the best division in baseball from last year with two teams that can absolutely rake, and a team in Tampa Bay that's crafty, who we'll talk about in a bit. And, what Toronto brings, you can't sleep on them too much in terms of Toronto versus Baltimore. But, I mean, seeing them, if they could get to, a certain number, if they could get up to like 65 wins, that's, I mean, with this ragtag group of guys.
So I'm gonna give you their projected starter.
Okay.
Projected starting lineup for
Please.
Position players, including DH. Let me know who you give me a name you recognize from this, please.
Yep.
Just count them off your fingers. Don't do it at the end, right?
I gotcha.
Cedric Mullins, Jonathan Villar, Trey Mancini, Mark Trumbo, Chris Davis, Renato Nunez, DJ Stewart, Richie Martin, Chance Cisco.
4 of the 8 position players.
4 of 9, yeah. Because I
said pitcher.
Well, no, I include the DH.
DH, yeah.
So, of that, Jordy. Okay, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys that they drafted. 5 of the 9 are guys that they drafted straight from themselves, homegrown players.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty impressive.
That is pretty impressive.
Mancini being one of those guys, but Trumbo they traded for, obviously Chris Davis they traded for, picked up Nunez off waivers. But the point is, 4 guys. If you recognize 4 names and you would call yourself a baseball guy, then let's go on a limb and say this team is not great. Now,
no.
If you're
they're projected to lose 100 games for their over/under with Vegas.
If you're Alex Cobb, you went from the Rays last year. Why would you leave? Yeah. Why would you leave to go sign with the Baltimore Orioles? I mean, I think we've spent enough time talking about them. I would love to hear your opinion about, when I first led this off, I'd love to hear your opinion about a team that openly or a franchise that openly, or maybe not even openly, admits they're in a rebuild and does absolutely nothing in the offseason and just relies on their drafting to make themselves better. I would love to hear what that's like.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I did not answer your question from before. Yeah, the Phillies went through this from basically 2012 until, this year when they actually, started spending Comcast Mountain money. Granted, the last 2 years they started getting, some hype. Last year, obviously they got close to making the playoffs, but yeah, when they don't make moves like this and they're kind of in the midst of this holding pattern where it's going to be a rough year. This reminds me of 2015 specifically, where the Phillies finished in dead last and ended up getting a number 1 overall pick. I don't know if they've seen what the Phillies were able to do and where they're coming now, or an even better example, what the Cubs did, what the Astros did, of a couple years of openly tanking, which is effectively what they're doing. And, just trying to accumulate first round picks and see, what sticks there of guys they can bring up in the minor leagues, homegrown guys like you're talking about, and, bring it up that way and hope, and I think a town like Baltimore, who love their Orioles, hope that by the time that you're good again, that it's still, everything's all honky dory. And, now that you're good, that it, all the past transgressions can be, forgiven.
I guess Philly is a different breed of animal than a Baltimore fan base, but
I mean, to be fair, the Cubs did it, the Astros did it. The Astros were terrible for how long?
Yeah, but
and they got all their guys.
Here's the difference: is that the 76ers embraced it. The whole trust the process,
trust the process, and
blah blah blah.
Trading away Michael Carter Williams off of winning a Rookie of the Year award. I mean, it was very blatant. They were trying to lose. They were not shy about it.
Yeah, Michael Carter Williams, Syracuse alum, not even alum. He didn't graduate, but Syracuse boy. Anyway, let's move on.
All right, let's head over
next.
Yeah, so we're going alphabetical order. If you couldn't tell, why we lead off the season talking about the Baltimore Orioles. Should have said that at the top of the show. Greg, we're staying in the B's to go up to your beloved Boston Red Sox, who currently
I've heard of them.
You've heard of them? Oh, that's good. That's good. They play in a park with a giant fence. I don't know if you know this. Because apparently way back in the day, their owner didn't like that people sat on a hill. I learned that when I took a tour of this park with the green fence.
No free.
Greg, you still there?
Yep.
What did you say?
I said no free views.
Yes, that's a very good point. And, I mean, it's a pretty iconic thing. If you have never heard of this, I believe it's called the Green Monster. It sounds like a pretty iconic scene. But anyway, let's jump into the team itself. So they finished first in Major League Baseball last year, obviously won the World Series, the best hitting team in baseball, first in batting average, first in runs. Are they first in homers too, Greg?
No, that would be the Yankees.
But we all saw how that went in the playoffs. But, I mean, this team can do a lot of it. And, Greg, you want to lead the way of their offseason moves, considering this is your team?
Please, go ahead.
You want me to go ahead? All right. Yeah, so the Red Sox.
I'll let you start.
Okay. I wanted you to, get excited about your boys and tell me all about it. But yeah. Wow. They avoided arbitration with a lot of different boys on their team, including Brock Holt, the Bracket Chip, JBJ, Xander Bogaerts, Mookie Betts, all right on January 11th. Matt Barnes, Eduardo Rodriguez. Yeah. So, I mean, they're bringing back, the gang's getting back together. They're Greg, it seems like that they are really, embracing, this young core and, doing, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, I mean, outside of not getting a closer, not solidifying the bullpen.
I mean, that's a good point. Kimbrel is still out there, so they are potentially losing him. It's safe to assume they're not bringing him back.
So they only want to give him like a 1 or 2 year deal, and Kimbrel is looking for like a 6 or 7 year deal, and no one's giving it to him. Let alone not only the Red Sox, but no one else is giving him that. So I'm not sure what Kimbrel's going to do. He's got to come off that multi-year. He's looking for a long-term deal, which no one's going to give him. So the Red Sox, as you said, didn't do outside of they brought back Pierce, who was going to leave. Obviously, like they brought back Nunez, and whomever, whatever. They basically just brought back the team they won the World Series with the exception of
Craig
Kimbrel.
Kimbrel. Yeah.
So, like you said, not broke, don't fix it. But here's the thing, Jordy. Not only did they bring everyone back they won the World Series with, but they're getting back a guy who at one point in his career won the Major League MVP award.
An AL MVP award. They give it to each league.
Right, but he was the MVP of the entire league that year.
I'm trying to think who won the NL MVP in 2008.
And that, of course, is Dustin Pedroia.
The Laser Show.
Boom, Laser Show. Now, what will he be coming off his knee and foot and all this, whatever injury he had that kept him out? He played all of, 4 or 5 games last year. What will he be? But the point is that in a position that, they let Kinsler go in order to, on a San Diego team, which now looks...
Well, Pujols won it in 2008 in the National League. Fun fact.
Yeah, and Pedroia is way better. But they let Kinsler go, who's now at San Diego, who San Diego looks like, pretty good now they got Machado. But they knew between Pedroia, Nunez, Brock Holt, and even Sway Lu Lin, they would be able to patch together a second base group until Dustin's full-time. Dustin Pedroia's full-time. The only thing that is interesting to watch for the Red Sox team will be the catcher, because they have Christian Vasquez, Sandy Leon, who are the 2 guys who are there normally. But then they have this guy, Blake Swihart. Not many people know of him, but he's the best hitting catcher of the 3. And he wants to play. If he would go anywhere else, he would be instant starter for them. He would be unreal for anyone who he's with. But the Red Sox keep holding on to him because he's him and Vasquez are young, and Swihart's really good at hitting the ball. He's a good hitter.
He played in 3 games in the postseason. Holy shit! I thought he got a lot more play in the postseason last year. I'm looking up his stats now.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but he also he learned the outfield just so he could make his way onto the team somehow.
I was about to ask. He can play other positions too, right? Wasn't he a third baseman by trade, and he learned how to play catcher?
But now he plays outfield as a backup catcher as well. Yeah. So the point is that I'm not sure what they're going to do, but see, here's the thing with the catchers, right? Christian Vasquez, he's your starter, your quote number 1, because he catches pitchers really well, and he's the middle for the pitchers and catching the pitchers, and he's the middle for the hitting, right, of the 3. Sandy Leon is the worst hitter, but he's best at catching pitchers. And Blake Swihart is probably the best hitter, but the worst of catching pitchers. Not to say that he's bad at catching pitchers, but the pitchers love throwing to Sandy Leon, even though Sandy Leon hits like just over 200 every year. But
I mean, some guys, some catchers are their guys. Doesn't really matter. You want them to be the leader on the field.
Exactly. Sandy Leon's got Chris Sale and up his sleeve, whatever. So the Red Sox sale price Porcello, Eovaldi, Rodriguez, and then you get Stephen Wright as a fill-in for your 5th/6th guy.
Yeah,
that's an unreal starting pitching lineup.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and their bullpen without a closer. Tyler Thornburg, he's healthy this year. Hopefully you get him, Bobby Pointer, Hector Velasquez. So hopefully you get some of these guys to Carson Smith. They sort of been hurt last year. And obviously Matt Barnes and Ryan Brazier, who play in the pitch in the World Series. But the bullpen is the only concern because you don't have a closer. But other than that, you just took a lineup that won 108 games last year, which was the best in Major League Baseball, and added Dustin
Not a big
Pedroia
deal.
to it. Right. Added Dustin Pedroia to it. Lost your closer, but I'm excited. I think they're going to win 108 games again? Tough to say, but the AL East is that bad this year, in my opinion, that they might be able to. But you never know.
I'll put it this way. They're over-unders at 95.5, and the odds on it are minus 165, meaning you'd have to bet $165 to just win 100. And the under is a underdog. You would make money by betting it. Plus 135 is what you're getting at if you think they win 95 games or less, which I think 100 is probably the number to go at if you really want to be competitive. But putting it over under at 100 is kind of absurd, but I think it's doable for this team. I mean, yeah, like you said, having the versatility that they do, and just guys that they have, because you were very critical last year of being able to do different versions of plug and play that the Red Sox certainly can do, but they have their guys at every position. They can roll out every day, and like I let off, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and something that's been said a lot here is that Dave Dombrowski, when he was with the Tigers, built a team strictly around offense and was never able to win because he didn't care about his pitching and didn't this and that. And
let's say that Tigers team, I mean, that pitching staff wasn't as good as this Red Sox team is.
Well, that's what they're saying, is that he's bailed out by the starting pitching and Chris Sale and David Price and Porcello, and
but those are
guys,
his moves too. So I mean,
well, the only one that he did was Chris Sale. The other ones were there. No, he was there before him.
Okay. That was one of his first moves.
So was Porcello. But the point is that last year everyone complained they didn't get any. Everyone said they weren't going to win the World Series because they didn't get any reliever help. Go out, win the World Series, no big deal. But how did they win the World Series, Jordy? They had starting pitchers pitch at the end of games.
Yeah.
So
David Price of the biggest example. That guy, he shed his whole playoff Price, persona that was, persona non grata, if you will, and he turned out to be, he was a solid addition in that postseason.
And Chris Sale, you could argue he had terrible numbers in the postseason as well. And I mean, but again, they had Nathan Eovaldi pitch 9 or 7 innings in a extra inning game, right? They had Chris Sale close out Game 5 rather than bring in your closer. So the point is that Dombrowski, which hurts the starting pitchers in the long run, So I think it's gonna be a little slower start for the Red Sox than what they had last year. Okay. Just because they played so much later, their pitchers pitched so much later, which means you're gonna need more time to ramp up. Now this is a whole separate question we can get into later, but what would prevent a team like the Red Sox, who have 6 starting pitchers, to pitch 6 for the first month and get guys a little more rest? And because the big thing was Chris Sale faded last year, right? Chris Sale didn't do that well in August and September, and they shut him down with his injury or whatever. His belly button.
17 too, wasn't that just kind of becoming his thing?
Yeah, exactly. That was a big thing in 17. But Chris Sale had his belly button ring infection that shut him down, right? Remember that was the old joke?
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot about that whole thing.
So I mean, I would consider it personally if I was Cora, but again, I haven't won any World Series, so who am I? Let's move on to the next team because I could talk about the Red Sox for hours.
Yeah, and I have a feeling you might not want to talk about this team, you might.
I would love to talk about this next team.
You want to talk about this team? We move over. Of course, we're moving alphabetically. We go to the New York Yankees, the Bronx Bombers, as Greg might call them, the evil empire, the favorite of my late great father, the New York Yankees, who had they might not have been able to get some of the biggest names off of the trade, from the not the trade deadline, the free agent market, but they did pick up some good acquisitions. I think they got DJ LeMahieu as their second baseman out of free agency. They traded Sonny Gray in a 3-player deal to Cincinnati, and they end up getting, actually there's a 3-team deal too. They end up getting Shed Long or he gets sent to Seattle, and Seattle comes back. Yahoo puts these trades in so
James
weird.
Paxton. They got James Paxton, starting pitcher, lefty.
Well, yeah, they picked him up. They previously picked him up though and signed him to avoid arbitration, I believe.
In November, I thought they got him.
Yeah, they got him in November. That wasn't a part of this three-way trade. But yeah, they pick up a number of different dudes. They got AJ. They picked up AJ Cole, or he got sent to Cleveland.
Oh boy.
Signed Greg Bird to avoid arbitration. Yeah, I mean, Troy Tulowitzki they picked up. That's another big name. And, of course, he had the big homer a couple weeks ago, or last week, because it's only been a week of games, where he – Greg, did you see this, where he hits a home run and he starts screaming at the Toronto bench or the Toronto dugout after he hit a bomb off of them?
If I'm Troy Tulowitzki, I would be pumped. I'm not in Toronto right now.
Yeah, it's a good point. But, yeah, I mean, it's been a busy offseason for them. Then the big news that they had last week, they signed Aaron Hicks to a 7-year extension. The week before that, signed Luis Severino to a 4-year contract. And Severino missed his start today due to shoulder pain, I've read. Greg, I mean, what have your thoughts been on the Yankees and what they've been doing this offseason? Because it's been interesting. You know, they were trying to be players in both Harper and Machado, didn't get it, but they made some interesting moves. And I think it'll be fun to watch them, I think.
Well, everyone's talking about how this is the quote-unquote best bullpen ever assembled, and that's what people are saying on paper, blah, blah, blah. But lest we forget, Aroldis Chapman struggled at the end of last year. Struggled. Zach Britton, since his injury, has been a shell of himself. Okay, Dellin Betances, yeah, good, 6'7". His body will break down soon enough.
That's a good point. I forgot Adam Ottavino that they picked up from Colorado.
He's good. I'll give the Yankees credit there. But CC got suspended for what? I guess how many games is he missing? Do we know that?
I'm gonna look at this. He also signed. Did you see he signed with ESPN today to do various spots while he's playing this year?
That's absurd. That's fucking ESPN. But my point is that as good as the Red Sox starting pitching is, the Yankees is that bad. And just like as good as the Yankees bullpen is, the Red Sox is that bad.
Well, that's why the Severino injury is actually a little bit concerning, is because he's your tried and true guy. I mean, he's been pretty solid. Paxton's, I'm going to pull up his numbers now, but he's been in Seattle for a while. Tanaka, I mean, is he healthy? Do we know what he's been doing? CC, he's on his last year. He's retiring after this year. Maybe he gets one last push in him. J Happ, I think probably he's going to go. I feel like we're forgetting to talk about him, and he had himself a pretty solid year last year. 17-6. You can't forget about that. And I think he's going to do pretty well. He almost had 200 strikeouts, which I didn't realize. I mean, I know he got shelled against the Red Sox, and that's sort of your lasting impression of him in 2018, Greg. But he won a number of different starts down the stretch. And the Yankee, he went 7-0 as a Yankee in the regular season, 7-1 if you count that postseason start. But I think he's going to be.
Are you saying this because he was a Philly and you like him because he was a Philly?
He hasn't been a Philly since 2010.
I'm just saying, it sounds like a lot of.
What I'm saying though is that you can't forget about him. I mean, yes, I don't think comparatively to the Red Sox, the Yankees starting staff is not at that caliber. But I think, if Severino ends up missing some time, I think Happ is going to be the guy for a bit. Maybe Paxton, maybe Tanaka, but I think Happ is. He can get some stuff done. Paxton, I got his numbers up now, 11-6. He had over 200 strikeouts. So we'll see what he does now that he's coming east. He obviously had to face Oakland and Houston a number of times last year, and he pitched well against both of them, including on the road in September, which you got to give him all props there. But,
yeah, no, and Tanaka's good. He'll be Tanaka. He'll have his numbers, and every big game he'll dominate for about 7 innings. And J Hap.
He only pitched 150 innings last year.
He was
like,
hurt.
Do we know how he's? Yeah, I mean, do we know he's going to be all right? I know he pitched 30 games in 17. He pitched 30 games in 16. So he's been the last couple of years. He wrote it well, but 17 his numbers weren't as good as they had been. So I mean, a nice bounce back year when he was healthy last year. So let's hopefully hopefully as a baseball fan, not for you as a Red Sox fan, but hopefully as a baseball fan, he's back to where he was when he first took the league by storm those first couple of years.
The big question is for this Yankee team, in my opinion, is going to come down to who plays first base.
Fair question.
Because you have Luke Voit, not great. DJ LeMahieu.
DJ LeMahieu's going to play second base, I believe.
He's gonna bump Gleyber Torres. I mean, Gleyber Torres, who was your MVP, or who was the Rookie of the Year according to every Yankee fan.
He can play shortstop, though.
Even though he didn't win. Gleyber's going to play shortstop, so where does Didi play?
Fair question. Why is he on there, popping up on their what's it called?
He's hurt. Chart. He's hurt, but that's why you have
right now.
But that's why you have Troy Tulowitzki. And then you got Miguel Andujar at third. But
Didi when he comes back. I mean, it's interesting how they could build it out, though. I mean, you're obviously not going to move any of them to DH and unseat Stanton.
I mean, you could treat DJ LeMahieu as LeMahieu, whatever his name is, as a Brock Holt.
Yeah, you're adding a T into his name.
Yeah, sorry. As a Brock Holt of this team, you could treat him that way. But Greg Bird.
Looking up, has he played first base at all? Yeah, I guess he's played a few games at first, but not in the last couple of years. He's been strictly a second baseman since 2015.
Yeah, but Gleyber just was your Rookie of the Year, even though he didn't win.
Yeah, I mean, you could throw him there. It's going to be an interesting mix of how they decided to do this. That's actually a really good question of who plays where.
Yeah, Brett Boone's little brother is going to have his work cut out for him. And honestly, I think this team will be as good as Gary Sanchez is, because if he doesn't figure out what
they won't hustle,
if he doesn't figure out how to catch the ball,
yeah.
I mean, how many balls were in the dirt that went by him? How many times in the playoff series did he just let the ball go to the backstop, and watching him have to get up and go chase the ball because he couldn't block a slider in the dirt? Oh, it was hilarious. Oh, man. And then you got Austin Romine, who probably should be the starter, but he can't hit for shit, but neither did Gary Sanchez last year. So,
telling me I had him in fantasy.
And obviously, we haven't even talked about their outfield. You got Hicks, you got Judge, you got Gardner, you got Stanton, you got is Frazier coming back this year? Do we know?
Yeah, he's coming back.
And then you got, of course, Jacoby Ellsbury.
Yeah, he's hanging around, man. He's hanging in there.
Well, he's paid for the next 8 years, but
yeah.
Aaron Judge, can he stay healthy? Can he do something for a whole year? In my opinion, no. Giancarlo Stanton, is he fading? In my opinion, yes. Brett Gardner, super fast, super annoying. Is he going to be that again this year? Yes. And Aaron Hicks.
All right, there's some positivity from Greg about the Yankees. We've filled a quota.
Yeah, and Aaron, exactly. Thank you. And Aaron Hicks is probably the best outfielder they have.
Oh yeah, he definitely is.
Defensively,
absolutely. Hitting. I'd probably still give it to Judge. He hit 278. To your point, he only played 112 games, but 278 is still 278.
Yeah, this guy's supposed to be your superstar. He barely played.
Played over 100 games. That's not barely played.
I mean,
Aaron Hicks played 137. I know that's 20 more games, but still.
Coach's decision.
Yeah. All right.
I'm just messing with you. Honestly,
better than Neil Walker's fucking 219. Greg Bird batting below the Mendoza line.
Hey, she's a great analyst.
Whoa. Jess Mendoza's great. Talking I actually forget the Mendoza of the 200.
There you go. You'll get it.
All
right.
Anyway,
let's move into the Tampa Bay Rays. Jordy.
Yes. Greg, our favorite team from last year, the team we love to watch. who great hitting team and one of the best pitching staffs coming back. And I'm excited to see what this team does, man. Blake Snell, who we argued to death last year, Charlie Morton, Tyler Glasnow, a pretty solid 3-pack in terms of starting pitchers for a top 3. And then it'll be interesting to see what they do with the starter method that they started last year. And will they continue that? How will they continue that? And does that trend to continue to add on into Tampa? But they actually had a pretty good offseason. I think they had some nice pickups. They picked up Mike Zunino from the Mariners, which he's a veteran catcher. I think brings a presence there. Like we said before, Charlie Morton. Yep. Yeah. I mean, he's done a lot for Houston and what they've done. If you want to talk about former Phillies, Greg, that I could really pump their tires, I could talk for days about Charlie Morton and the fact that we let him go. We traded him away. Very upset about that. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I mean, they bring back a lot of guys that they've picked up kind of just here and there. Tommy Pham, Matt Duffy, who both came over last year. The one guy I'm sure they're bummed, who they actually traded to the Phillies, and he's now in New York, but as a Met, is Wilson Ramos. Zunino's a pretty solid fielding catcher. I don't think he's going to replace what Ramos can do offensively. But I mean, they still got a number of guys that I think can round the bases for him. Joey Wendell returns, and he batted 300 with 61 RBI. So, he'll be a solid top of the lineup guy. Tommy Pham, Austin Meadows, Kevin Kiermaier. So that's their outfield. If you were unaware, I mean, I think, Greg, these guys are young. They're quick. They can score runs.
So
not necessarily at will, but they can get the job done especially with this pitching staff they have.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So this opener position, right?
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, they had starting pitchers, but every fifth game or whatever it was, once in the rotation of 5, they had a opener, and he would pitch 3 to 4 innings, and then they would just go bullpen basically the whole game. In one scenario, they had a guy pitch one batter and then switched him out and went to the bullpen for the rest. The majority of those times, were those actual bullpen guys, or were those rookies who were on like a pitch limit just because they were rookies? They didn't want to blow out their arms or something.
It is a mix of both. It was mainly bullpen guys, though. To give you an idea, for everybody to get an idea, Craig, they had guys like Hunter Wood, who had 29 appearances and 8 starts. They had Ryan Yarborough, who started 6 games and appeared in 38 of them. He actually ended up going 16-6 over the course of the season, which was second on the team behind Blake Snell. They have another guy, Sergio Romo is a perfect example. You might remember him from all those Giants teams. He appeared in 73 games and started 5 of them. And then they had other guys that were starters who either got moved, like an Anthony Eovaldi, Tyler Glasnow, Chris Archer. And so their starting rotation was kind of just a carousel, both of these opener position and starting pitchers that ended up either getting moved or getting hurt or a mix of both. But yeah, to answer your question, it's kind of a mixed bag, really, of what they ended up doing, and they won 90 games out of this. I mean, really, kind of taking the cards you were dealt with and making a winner out of it. Which, granted, they didn't make the playoffs, but 90 wins is still 90 wins, and that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, and we talked about it. I mean, can they repeat that 90-win season? I'm not sure that's what they're going for. And if they had kept some of their starting pitchers at the deadline, maybe they make the playoffs instead of.
That's what's so weird about what Tampa did. That they won 90 games, but they were effectively sellers.
Right, and they missed the playoffs. I mean, by 7 games because the
Yankees won 100 and
Athletics won 97.
Yep. So
they essentially missed because of that, but. You're right. They were sellers at the deadline, and they still won 90 games. So these offseason moves, well, good. The things that I've been hearing is that instead of last year they did 4 starting pitchers and then 1 of this opener.
Yep.
There's talk out there that they're going to go 3 starting pitchers and 2 of every 5 days are going to be this opener bullpen system. Now, does that not wear a team out?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because the idea is, for those that aren't aware of what the strategy is that the idea is that you could bring in a veteran guy like Romo, and have him pitch against the top of the order, where the statistics show there's such a higher percentage of runs that are scored the first time a lineup goes through the order, and then there's such a lower percentage of runs by the time the lineup goes through a third time, in the sixth, seventh innings, depending on where it is. The American League happens quicker because of the DH, so on and so forth. So the idea is you bring in a veteran guy like Sergio Romo or any opener to face maybe the first 5 or 6 batters. And then when you get to the bottom of the order, you bring in, like Greg asked, if it's a younger guy, a younger starter, you bring him in at that point to then get his bearings, get settled in by the time he gets back up to the top of the order. To answer your question of whether or not this wears on a team, it absolutely does. And it's something that you have to be aware of. And if you're Tampa and you're trying to repeat 90 wins, that's really, really leveraging a lot of what your pitching staff is doing. You're either running yourself where you are effectively having to take away a bench spot so that you make sure that you have more bullpen guys, which maybe you can do. You play in the American League. You have a DH. You don't have to start thinking about pinch hitting and double switches and all that sort of stuff. So maybe you can get away with that. But it's a risky move to take. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. I think you might see them start the season this way, and maybe they have some guys who want to become full-time starters or feel more comfortable, or guys they want to bring up from AAA or what it might be. I don't think it's a sustainable model yet. It could be, given the right lineup or the right 25-man roster build, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think this lineup is built that way, though.
And it's,
nor do I think it has the firepower to try to match the leverage that they're putting on this team, on the pitching staff.
It's tough because, you have Pham.
Yeah, Tommy Pham.
Pham, yeah.
Tommy Pham.
And
I'll put it this way: they have to play as a National League team. They were 16th in Major League Baseball in runs, 27th in homers, but they were third in batting average. They manufacture runs there, and then
I guess what
they
I'm
have
trying. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, then their pitching staff it was firing on all cylinders last year. You had Blake Snell, who had an incredible season. You had a number of other dudes who this pitching staff by committee did a really good job, but I don't know. At some point, you can talk about how the Yankees led the American League in homers, and how that worked for them with not having the greatest batting average when the bats go cold. But the reverse isn't necessarily the answer either. You need balance, and you need something like that. And it's just not. It doesn't seem like it'll be sustainable. I don't know. I interrupted you. What were your thoughts?
No, I interrupted you. That was my fault. It was the same thing we started out with the Baltimore Orioles, when going down their projected starting lineup and how many names would you recognize. If I do that same exact thing, because I put you on the spot for the last one, and I'm going to put myself on the spot for this one, I recognize 1, maybe 2 names, and I watched this team last year play the Red Sox 18 times. So, yeah, so for me, it's I'm just talking about their offense here, but for me, it's almost like you had 90 wins and you almost did nothing to improve yourself.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you got rid of Archer, you got rid of Eovaldi, you got rid of all these guys, and the Rays are a team that always stockpiles picks. The Rays are a team that always turn around and has the number 1 pick, and at what point does that end? Like, at what point are you gonna make a run? They made a run 1 year with Tulowitzki, or 2 years, but are they just Is that going to be their MO? They're going to make one run, and then everyone's going to become a free agent, and then they're going to blow it up again, and then make another run after 7 years, and then everyone's going to become a free agent, blow it up, and then make another run after 7 years. Is that just going to be their thing for the rest of the time? Like when do they sustain? I guess they can't because they don't have the money to pay people like the Yankees and Red Sox. But at what point are they going to sustain and keep some of these guys?
Yeah, it's a fair point because, as you mentioned, they've done this how many times now in 20 years? This is their 22nd year in Major League Baseball. And they've now, since coming onto the scene as the Rays in 2008 with Longoria, Price, that whole team that went to the World Series, they've done this effectively twice. You can debate more if you want to on how many times they've really hit the reset button and everything. Yeah, I don't know. At some point, they have to figure that out. I mean, I don't know if this is literally just the island of misfit toys, from from Moneyball and everything, because it's a fair point that guys like Duffy, Pham come over here, Zunino comes over here, see what he does. Then they got their young guys like Joey Wendell, Austin Meadows, Kiermaier. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what this team does. They're over under set at 84.5. Which is a really intriguing number because it's, I think this is a 500 club. I don't know if it's an 85 that's like you're floating around wild card territory. Now, granted, last year the American League, because of how big of a divide there was between the haves and the have-nots, it turned out being an 85 win team was nowhere close to being a wild card team. But I don't know. I just don't know if they're 87, 88, 90 wins again. I definitely think they're above 80. If I had to pick a range, I'd say 80 to 85 sounds right at home for this team.
So that the Rays doing worse than last year was the whole reason why I started out by saying, when we talked about the Red Sox, why I started out by saying that this division will be way weaker than it was last year, mainly because they did lose the starting pitching that they traded away. They did lose, some of their bats in free agency. So I personally don't think that they're going to do as well. I don't think they're going to win 90 games, and I think you can get away with taxing your bullpen for one day of the 5, because clearly they did it last year. Clearly they did it last year, but I'm not sure you can get away with it with 2 out of every 5 days. Because what happens if Blake Snell had to win the Cy Young? He had to win the Cy Young award for that system to work, because he would eat up innings. Even Archer ate up innings, even though the manager kept him in just to eat up innings. But my point being that they had to have a Cy Young Award winner eat up innings, and there's no guarantee he'll repeat that success, because how often does a guy win the Cy Young 2 years in a row?
Exactly.
So, in my opinion, if any of the other starter or the guys who are their starters has a bad day, guess what? Your bullpen's now taxed potentially 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, 5 days in a row, and you're screwed for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's like I said, you're leveraging a lot on your pitching staff by trying to implement this even further with a second starter. Unless you're doing one guy and you just said this is your job, you're going to be the starting specialist. You're going to pitch 5 batters, then you're out. I don't know. I don't know if that's sustainable. I mean, if you're telling a guy to pitch 5 guys in the next 3 days, you're not pitching no matter what, unless we really need you in the 12th inning and we've used everybody because of this, that, and the other thing. Maybe that's a way that you make it more sustainable. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there, but yeah, I think it is. It's sadly, because this is a team we had a ton of fun watching. It's going to be I think that's going to be a worse year, but I still think above 500.
Agreed. Let's move into the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yes, the Toronto Blue Jays, the sole Canadian team, potentially not for long, and we can discuss MLB expansion and all that good stuff at a later date. But the Blue Jays, Greg, come into this season. They finished last year in 4th place. They were 73 and 89. Just kind of a typical, 4th place finish. Average at home, not so good on the road. These guys last year, they were, just they were middle of the road offensively, but pretty bad pitching wise. And that's something that I think every single year we've given them that same criticism is we don't know what they're bringing to the table pitching wise, and it hasn't really paid off for them. What are your first impressions of this team when you look at them, transactions and all?
They went out and added three starting pitchers: Clay Buchholz, Matt Shoemaker, and Clayton Richard, to go along with Stroman and Sanchez. They added Bud Norris in the bullpen via trade. They added John Axford in bullpen. Everything in me is telling me that they're doing moves to at least come in third, if not a wild card. The thing that frustrates me the most about this team is something that you and I talked about at nauseum last year. But Vlad Guerrero Jr., the GM, flat out came out and said that he is not an MLB player right now.
Yeah, it is super frustrating because it's one of those things. And like you said, we mentioned this a lot with Acuna. And we probably, if we had known better, we might have said it about Soto, but I don't know if anybody really was saying it about Soto a year ago. But yeah, it's one of those things. This guy's been raking in spring training. Major League Baseball tweets out his home runs. His first home run was it was a laser. It was close to the laser show, but it was just a little stayed just no more than 5 yards 5-10 yards off the ground and just right over the left center field wall. It's something it is pretty fucking crazy that he doesn't get to, he's not there yet, and he's still going to be the number one prospect in baseball. And who knows if they're just waiting until April, whatever, if to call him up and get him set up that way.
Or is it one of those things where they did like with Chris Bryant and those other guys and even Acuna last year who won the
That's what I mean. You wait until April. I think it's 15th, 16th to call him up, so it doesn't count as it counts as your rookie year, but it doesn't count when you come back for free agency and all that stuff.
So I was confused because I thought, for some reason, when I think baseball season over, I think March because spring training, but really it's April. I didn't realize that he was a third baseman, by the way, Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, I think he's a third baseman. I think he plays outfield as well. I think he plays a couple different positions. I need to go double check.
So
in terms of what he's designated in our keeper league.
So the thing that Kevin Pillar, this guy, Kevin Pillar, the center fielder for Toronto, he's just one of those. I've said this at nauseum. I think I've said it in this pod before, but any AL East team, especially the Red Sox and Yankees, whenever they have to go to Toronto and play in that dome, they don't win. They lose series 2 out of 3. Last year,
when I was in Boston, you and I were watching the end of that series. You looked depressed that they had to go. That they were in Toronto. We were watching that in the NFL draft.
I was, because they never win in Toronto. And the Yankees are in the same boat for whatever reason. Maybe it's the lighting. Maybe it's, I don't know. But 2 years ago, the Toronto Blue Jays were in the playoffs, correct?
3 years ago.
Oh, that was 3 years ago.
They made the playoffs. I don't think I'm pretty sure they didn't make the playoffs in 2017. I'm going to double check now. They definitely did in 16.
What was the bat flip year?
That was 15. Was the bat flip year?
Okay.
Yeah. No. In 2017 it was the Red Sox and the Yankees, and the Yankees won. Yeah, because the Yankees won the wild card game and went to the ALCS and lost to Houston. Toronto was 76 and 86 last year. Double checking 16. I think they made the playoffs that year too. Yeah, they did. 3 teams from the AL East made it. Boston, Toronto, and Baltimore, coming back around to them. But yeah, things really tailed off pretty quickly after that. Remember Baltimore Baltimore lost to Toronto because they didn't bring in Jesus Christ, his name is escaping me. Closer. On the Yankees now.
Zach Britton?
Yes, they didn't bring in Zach Britton. Wow, that's a blank right there. Holy shit. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, Toronto, that's a fair point, though, because it really, I mean, obviously, Jose Bautista kind of took a dive, and he was a non-factor last year, and he wasn't really a factor 2 years ago either. But they still got Kendrys Morales. They still have Kevin Pillar. They ended up picking up Freddie Galvis in the middle of last year from San Diego. And or did they get him in the offseason? I'm double checking now. But he's playing shortstop for him, a former Philly who can a little bit of pop, but pretty good fielder, which is kind of what they need there.
Plus they have Ken Giles, who had 0 blown saves last year.
When he came to Toronto, yes.
Right.
If you remember, he was with Houston. He ended up getting into a couple shouting matches with their manager, got sent down to the minors, picked up off waivers by Toronto. And yeah, when he got brought up, he ended up being this incredible player for Toronto and really ended up kind of being a catalyst that I think held them for a while, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't think they were having that good of a year before they got him. And I think he ended up helping them out a ton. I'm trying to look up his numbers here. 21 games appearances, 14 saves in 19 innings. Kind of a shitty ERA, but yeah, I don't see any blown and 0 blown saves here comparatively to Tyler Clippard at 6, Ryan Tepera at 8, Sung Hwan Oh at 1, and Roberto Osuna at 1 blown save as well. So definitely a big pick me up for that team.
So, and the thing that's crazy about this team is their prospects. They have
an incredible system,
unbelievable system. They have 5 guys who are in the top 100 entire major league, minor league prospects, including Danny Jensen, who is probably going to be their starting catcher as a rookie. Which, I mean, how often do you see that, a rookie catcher come out of nowhere that was drafted in 2013, and now is going to be their starter. Plus, they got Bo Bichette and Nate Pearson being starting pitcher, and then Vlad Guerrero Jr., who we talked about already. But this team, you could argue, has better prospects than the Rays that we were just talking about.
Yeah, I think Toronto's definitely in a position where they're whatever you want to call this. I wouldn't necessarily call it a rebuild because I don't think they're in a in a position that they're gonna like be tanking, trying to get picks and everything. I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see where they're sitting in July. I don't think it'll be tough. I think it will be tough for them to match the clip the Red Sox and the Yankees will be running. The Red Sox probably a couple paces ahead of the Yankees at that point. You can feel free to interpret that as you want, as I know you will. But it'll be really interesting to see what the markets look like for outfielders, for infielders, if they want to try to see what they can get for Justin Smoke, or for there are guys up the middle. Devin Travis and Freddie Galvis can certainly help a contender and all that stuff. I mean, who knows? This team is probably going to be one to really watch how they're doing, especially offensively, because offensively last year they were middle of the road. They weren't terrible.
Do they have the makings of being this 2018's version of the Braves?
A team that ends up just kind of really coming onto the scene in late April and never really giving into the youth. You mean?
Exactly, because they're going to have all these prospects get called up. They have the starting pitching in Stroman and Sanchez and Clay Buchholz, who had an unbelievable year last year with Arizona. Granted, Hitters Ballpark, but still, and the National League, which is a joke. But you're gonna let that shot go by.
Hey man, don't let the extra strikeout fool you. It's great. A lot of strategy in the National League.
So my point being that
no laughs about double switches, Greg. Tell that to Gabe the Babe.
I love Gabe the Babe. Maybe this may not be the Braves. Maybe that's a little out on the limb, but maybe they're the Rays. Maybe they're the team that wins 90 and doesn't make the playoffs and is still a seller.
I could see them being like a mix. I could see the problem is that they're in the American League East, so I think they're closer to the Rays than they are to a Braves.
Yeah, because the Braves were in the shittiest division last year. Yeah.
Well, think about this. I mean, to your point, Greg, the Nationals were supposed to be the far and away favorite in the National League East, and every other team. Maybe the Mets, if they stayed healthy, were supposed to suck because the Braves were up and coming, the Phillies were up and coming, and who the fuck knows what the Marlins are. But then the Nationals never got it together, and the Braves just never gave it up, and they just built confidence. So unless if you want to say they're going to be the Braves, you're basically saying that the Red Sox drastically underperformed to expectations that they have. The Yankees drastically underperformed to the expectations they have, and so on and so forth. Because even the Rays, I would think, would have to underperform to what we were just talking about as a above 500 team. Toronto, I don't know if they're a 500 team or not. I think that's their upside with what they have offensively and the guys they brought in for pitching. But we talk about this a lot when we are over at Blue Line Icing, or when you and I talk about basketball offline or anything like that. There's so many teams that you have to hopscotch to get there, and the fact that you're playing in a division that includes teams that won 100 games and could do that again, and both might do that again. It's tough to be really in that mix for potentially getting into a wild card conversation when we'll get to the West and the American League. We'll get to the Central. The Central might be hanging around, but we can talk about that another day. We discussed our thoughts on it, but
Jordy, let's get into predictions. We'll start at the bottom, head to the top. Who do you have coming in fifth?
Baltimore in fifth.
Okay, how many wins? Last year they had 47.
I'm going to be Mr. Positive here and say they get to 63 and don't lose 100 games. The Marlins could get to 63 last year, where they were just trading away anyone and everyone that had a pulse. I think this Baltimore team can potentially do that.
Nice.
47 is pretty low.
I'm also going to go Baltimore, but I'm going to say they're more in the 68, 69, 70 win range.
Okay. All right.
Maybe not that high, because that'll make the AL East that much of a harder division. But yeah. Okay, so I'll go 60. I'll go 67 on the high end, 66, 65.
All right.
Instead.
So fourth, who do you got?
Coming into it, the night, I would have said Tampa or Toronto, but after our preview, I'm going to go Tampa Bay comes in fourth. I just don't think that the three-man rotation with two opening, whatever they call it, is going to work. And I think at the end of the day, it hurts them. And they made it so far because of guys like Eovaldi and Archer, who they traded away. So, and Snell winning the Cy Young, and how many? I can honestly say that I don't think anyone's ever won back-to-back Cy Youngs in the modern era. So I'm going to go with the Rays.
Pedro never did?
Not back-to-back.
Wow.
I figured Roger Clemens maybe, but I don't think he did either. So Google. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays with 70 wins on the nose. Tell me who your fourth place is.
I'm going to go Toronto. I'm going to say that they and Tampa finish close. Toronto probably wins about 78 games. I'm going to have Tampa come in at 81, so they're my third place team. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be a down year, as we mentioned, or relative to last year, down year for Tampa. But I still think Toronto, we need to see a little more. We need to see how they come out of the gate, because I think if they can come out, if they come out of April and they continue to perform at the clip they do, it could be possible. But I think just being in the AL East, I think that becomes really the factor that makes the difference. So I have them at fourth, and jumping into third, I have Tampa at 81 wins.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to go Toronto in third with what happened to the Phillies win last year?
The Phillies won 80. The Phillies won 80 on the dot. Yep.
Okay, then I'm going to go 81, just like you said.
Okay. And Greg, to answer your question about back-to-back Cy Youngs, Pedro did win back-to-back. 1999 and 2000.
Nice.
No one in the American League has done it since then, but in the National League, it's happened a couple times since the year 2000, including a streak that started in 1999 of 4 straight by Randy Johnson. Tim Lincecum won back-to-back in 08 and 09. Clayton Kershaw did in 13 and 14. He won 3 of 4, 11, 13, and 14. And then Scherzer most recently in 16 and 17. And Roger Clemens, it looks like, did do it back-to-back as a member of the Blue Jays. And as a member of the Red Sox. He did it twice. He did it in 86, 87. He won another one as a Red Sox in 91, and then 2 in 97 and 98 as a member of the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I thought he did it with the Red Sox. But Pedro...
He did do it with the Red Sox.
Pedro won the first one.
99, yeah, the Pedro year.
Yeah. Yeah, he was good.
If you've never looked up I know you have, Greg, but if you've never looked up Pedro in the 99 All-Star game, look that up. It is possibly the most impressive feat. You will. Say what you will about the MLB All-Star game, but it's incredible.
So the thing that gets me is he's one of the best pitchers of all time.
Oh, easily.
And he did it during the steroid era, and you could 100%, just looking at his body, you could tell he never once did steroids, and he still was that dominant back-to-back. He won 4 Cy Youngs, like unreal, one of the best players of all time, pitchers of all time during the steroid era.
At the numbers, 99, he won 23 games, a 2.07 ERA, over 300 strikeouts. The next year, he went 18 and 6. He lost 2 more games and won 5 less, with an ERA of 1.74 and 30 less strikeouts. I mean, just absolute fucking dominance, man. And then, as you mentioned, he did it a couple more times over in the NL as a member of the Mets, I believe. He won one. I'm trying to double check if that is indeed correct. I don't see him here. I thought he did. Oh, no, he did. As a member of the Expos, he won it.
Yeah, and like...
He won 3 of 4 years. Yeah, in 1997, 3 of 4 years with 2 different teams. How nuts is that?
Yeah, so that's my point. Is that he did it during the steroid era and during the height of McGuire and Sosa and all that. So you could argue. I mean, Roger Clemens did it, but he was obviously taking steroids clearly based on his body, and he got caught. But
more so he got caught, not just based on his body. He got caught.
Jordy, tell me why the Yankees are going to be the second in the American League East.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in second. I think by what was the divide? It was 8 games last year, 108 to 100 on the dot.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Yankees actually get to 100 games again. I think they win 90. I'm going to go 96 games. I'm going to take the over on their number of 94 and a half. Same as the Red Sox.
Why do you think they drop?
I just think, we mentioned a little bit with that pitching staff. I just don't know. Obviously, I think they can make some deals. There's still a number of guys still out there. So if they end up getting a guy like Keuchel, I think that makes a huge difference, especially with whatever's happening to Luis Severino,
who they said now is not going to be ready for opening day.
Okay, yeah, so we have that. We have officially confirmed that. So if this causes them to go out and get Keuchel, and then whenever Severino comes back, I mean, I think the over then becomes fairly certain. The reason why for the down is I think, I just think the American League got a little bit better this year. I think we'll see a little bit of a not complete leveling of the playing field, because there's certainly teams that are out there that are going to be trying to get some draft picks in the mix here. We mentioned one in Baltimore, and I tried to be Mr. Positive on it and saying they'd win 63 games, but who knows? Maybe they really go full tank and try to outdo themselves from last year. Who knows what Kansas City does? Who knows what Detroit does? I think the White Sox are going to be better.
Do you see Kansas City just their starting catcher
yeah, how about that, man?
Tommy John
Salvador
surgery?
Perez. Salvador Perez is the consummate professional, man. That guy is awesome. But yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, they just lost their catcher. But yeah, I think the Yankees just have a bit of a down year. I think 100 wins to match that. When 3 teams in one league win 100 games, I just think it's hard to match that clip again. And I think the Astros are still pretty solid. I think the Red Sox can win 100 games again. So that's part of why I just think a down year. I think just no real statistics, no hard hitting analysis, just kind of just thinking, that's a hard feat to do twice. It's really a lot of my logic there.
Yeah, no, and I agree they're not going to win 100. I'm going to say like 96, 97.
Yeah, I think they get close. They're definitely going to get close. They have the talent to do so.
Maybe even 98. Just looking at like the Oakland Athletics won 97 last year, so it's not far out that the Yankees could repeat again with that 96, 97 number. They play in a Little League park and they have guys who hit home runs, so it's understandable they're going to put up numbers like they did last year, even though the Red Sox scored more runs than they did. But like we said, they're pitching, and that's, I think, the difference. Yeah, their bullpen may be the greatest of all time, but you still have to get the game to the bullpen. So, as you said, with Severino out, and who knows if they go out and get, if things could change if they go out and get Keuchel, but or Kluber.
Say that again.
Kluber, Keuchel, who's on the market?
Keuchel. Kluber is still a Cleveland Indian.
Keuchel, that's what I said. Yeah, I said that originally, but and that's what puts me at the number one team, the Red Sox, which is because, as we said, yes, they lost their closer, but they got that much better on offense because of Dustin Pedroia, because of full year of Pierce, because of full year of Eovaldi coming in starting pitching. They got that much better overall that Kimbrel may not matter as much, but I do think they need a closer before the year starts. But I'm going to go with the Red Sox win first place in the division, and they had 108 last year. I'm going 105.
Yeah, I'm going to go Red Sox, and I'm going to go a little less. I'll say 102.
Nice.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it's just tough to if we're going to go on actual numbers, it's just tough to think that the clip the American League was at last year. And again, this is knowing that there's open tanking across the league, both leagues rather. It's just one of those it's tough to get to. No real rhyme or reason there. But Greg, before we wrap this thing up, I know we will get into the official Stadium Snacks, Bleacher Creatures. We mentioned a couple, but are there any stories you wanted to point out? Because I know I mentioned a few before.
Yeah, Clay Buchholz.
Yeah.
My boy. Love Clay Bay. No, honestly, Jordy, before we head into the Bleacher Creatures, this offseason was hectic and crazy, but it was nice not having the Red Sox spend all their money and waste all their money on either guy of Harper and Machado, because when all these bills come to due next year, like Xander Bogaerts, like Chris Sale, like potential David Price, like Mookie Betts, when all these bills come due, Jackie Bradley Jr., they're going to need to dish out the money and dish it out big if the Red Sox win another 108 game, 100 and whatever games. So,
you sounded some nice tickets there.
Yeah, I'm glad that they saved some of their money, even though they're going to hit the luxury tax. But, by the way, yeah. Sorry,
I love it.
So I'm glad they saved their money for the following year, and I'm glad that Bryce Harper stays in the
NL.
The NL.
I'm very happy that he stayed in the NL, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Different pod, different day.
Different pod, different day, and hopefully a third host. They'll tease for that. Greg, you mentioned you have a Bleacher Creature.
So maybe not a Bleacher Creature, but another story. Jess Mendoza, we mentioned her earlier on the podcast. She was actually hired by the Mets.
Was she?
Yes, in a baseball. I forget her exact title, but like advisor, a baseball advisor role.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not sure if that means that she's done with ESPN, but I just thought it was interesting that we have a lot of guys. So a baseball, just have it up.
I'm pulling it up now.
Baseball
But yeah, this is awesome.
operations.
Good for her.
Baseball operations
Front office
advisor.
advisory role.
Yeah.
So she will, as an advisor to the team, she just signed a multi-year contract with ESPN. Her focus will be in areas of player evaluation, roster construction, technological advancement, and health and performance. And then there's a statement by Brody Van Wagenen, the agent turned Mets GM. It does not say what her job, if she'd continue at ESPN or not. She will remain. Oh, here we go. She will remain a member of ESPN Sunday Night Baseball announcing crew, per Tim Britton of The Athletic. So good for Jess. That's an awesome role. Man.
Yeah. So that just came.
We
to the
didn't
wire.
win. We lost in softball. She won a gold medal in 2004, and we lost in 2008. The last time softball was in the Olympics. We won a silver medal when it was in where was it, 08 in Beijing.
We being the USA.
Yeah, the USA. Kind of a bummer.
That's surprising because I'm pretty sure Team USA is like the Yukon women's basketball team.
Yeah, they mow down other countries.
I'm pretty sure they're like the Yukon women's basketball team of softball.
Yeah, I think you're very accurate on that. But anyway, good for Jess Mendoza. That's an awesome story. Yeah, that's,
Thank you. You're welcome for bringing that to your attention. You're happy.
Yeah.
So my actual bleacher creature, I have one, but I'll do it after yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go with yours while I pull mine up.
Okay. Did you see this Instagram video YouTube video that went viral of a hockey dad in Canada mic'd up his 4-year-old son during one of his practices, his learn to skate practices, whatever it was. Have you seen the full video?
I have seen the video, and it's incredible.
Oh, it's unreal. My roommate and I have it on repeat. We quote it to each other. 1 2 1 2 1 2. This kid is just, it's what you would imagine. It's what you have your own internal thoughts, Jordy, as anyone who played any type of sports will know, even gym class. There are times where you're like, all right, I'm done. And as a 4-year-old, he literally sits on the ground and says, all right, I'm done. No. And it's if you haven't seen it,
incredible. It's an awesome video.
I forget exactly what it's on, but if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it. That'd be my bleacher creature. It's just a genius idea by this dad. And the problem is, I think most people are going to try and replicate it, and it's going to be overdone. But this was a great idea by the dad, and hopefully he's him and his son are closer because of it.
Yeah, I mentioned when we talked about this on our hockey podcast, the Blue Line Icing. It just reminds me of it's what you see a ton of kids on ski mountains with GoPros, and like they think they're doing this for the gram and everything, but like this is the reason why kids play. You see like mic'd up and all that sort of stuff, and I mean this is the kind of stuff. This is why it's important. This is why we play. It's a kid being a kid and him having an awesome time, and there's nothing better than that. And
yeah, it's pure. He's not acting.
Joy.
Yeah, he's not acting. He's literally, those are his thoughts. He's like, all right, I'm tired. I'm gonna lay down.
Yeah.
And Dad, can we go to McDonald's after this? All I want is McDonald's. Literally, it's what we've all thought. Just we were older and we were like, all right, we can't actually sit down. We can't actually lay on the ground. And at one point, the kid starts crawling and he goes, oh, this will work. And then he starts doing the drill crawling the whole time until a coach comes and picks him up. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious because how many times have we thought the same thing? Oh, I'll just crawl and see what happens. So that's my bleacher creature, Jordy. What do you got?
Yeah, so mine it's from a couple weeks ago. Well, the tweet's from almost a month ago, but it was an article I read that's on USA Today, and it's just talking about trying to rename spring training. So just kind of a grouchy bleacher creature. But the tweet that inspired it was the Indians at the end of January took a picture of Progressive Field, their home stadium, covered in snow, and says, if we get, and it just shows weather info and everything and that how cold it is because of the lake effect. It says if we get 1 million retweets, we'll lick the foul pole. In reference to the great Christmas movie, A Christmas Story. So I just had to mention that. And this article talks about just trying to be like, oh, they're playing games in February and spring doesn't start until the end of March and the regular season starts a week after it's officially spring and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's a little bit complaining. I know you're in the same boat that I am where we have a ton of, we have really shitty weather and it's been kind of all over the place. I don't know if sure the wind's been worse for you guys because you're more right on the ocean than us comparatively between two rivers. But yeah, I don't know. It was a funny tweet that got kind of taken as a launching point for this guy, basically to complain about winter weather and the fact that especially here in the Northeast, it doesn't really become spring until April because March is just a shitty month weather-wise.
Yeah, and it sounds like whoever wrote this is just writing something to write something, because
yeah, it feels like that reading it.
That's a joke, man. That's a joke. Whatever that was a joke. I mean, there can't be a real comment by whoever wrote that. Like, don't call it spring training because it's actually in the fall. Well, no, like, or actually in the winter.
Yeah, the funniest, Greg, is the guy he pulls tweets from random dates to use at the end of it. One of them's from June 13th, 2018. A couple that are from February of 2019. One from March of 2016, and then the oldest tweet was on February 28th, 2011. That's from some guy that says the Royals lost 12-11. Why is it called spring training if they play in February? Sweet brag that the Royals lost, bro. But, that fucking happens. Pitchers and catchers show up in the middle of February for the exact reason why this dude's writing the article, because it's cold here. They go to fucking Florida and Arizona so they can, get warm and be ready to go. So they're not fucking throwing their arms off in April weather in Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, wherever the hell you're playing.
Exactly. And when I was younger, Jordy, this may be stupid, but I thought, because the Red Sox went to Florida, I thought every single team went to Florida. I had no idea that Arizona was a thing until probably, I would say, middle school or high school, or later than I care to admit.
You thought they only went to Florida?
Yeah, because all I knew was the Red Sox went to Florida. So and then, like, I was also living in New York at the time, so the Yankees were down there, the Mets were down there. So I was like, oh, the Yankees, Mets, Red Sox are all down there. Every team in the Major League must be down there.
I think I knew of Arizona because of Major League, the movie.
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, with the cactuses and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even put that together.
Yeah.
But you're more of a technical guy than I am, so you pay attention to stuff like that. The Phillies are down in Florida.
Yeah, they're in Clearwater, so they're not far from where the Yankees are. They're on the West Coast, on the Gulf side.
So, because Cleveland goes to Arizona, right?
They do. The Cubs do. I'm pretty sure the White Sox do. All the West Coast teams go to Arizona. The Dodgers did not for a while. That was the origin of the original Beat Your Creature, Paul Piatelli's your cousins sprinting to defeat the children and getting a home run ball. That was in Dodgertown, but now they're in Arizona.
So, but Cleveland doesn't seem far enough west to go to Arizona.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a mixed bag of who decides to go where. I don't know if it's something to do with contracts of where their minor league teams are, because I know, like, I'm sure the Red Sox do the same thing. The Phillies play where their single A team plays. I'm pretty sure the Yankees do the same thing. I know when the Dodgers were there, they showed the Dodgers single A team's logo. Same with the Mets, the Port St. Lucie Mets. So I don't know if it's something like that. I know they all share stadiums in Arizona, so I don't know if it's where that is, but if they have like a AAA team that's on the West Coast or more in the middle of the country comparatively to Cleveland, maybe that's part of it, so that their minor league camp can be there and it's not that far of travel, so they don't have to pay as much. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing ideas against the wall here.
Yeah, I would assume it's just more of like Arizona's West Coast time, so let's go our West Coast teams, or Central time, let's go our West Coast plus Central teams to stay in that. Plus, it's probably easier for the fans to go down there than it is to go to Florida, which is why
that might be it. I know with the Cubs that's where so many people retire from Chicago too.
Right, and that's why I'm so surprised about. Yeah, that's exactly the point. Like, what Chicago people go to Arizona to retire. Northeast people go to Florida to retire, so it makes sense. But that's why I'm surprised about Cleveland, because I didn't know Cleveland people went to Arizona, but
Yeah,
I
maybe
guess
we can do some research for the
they're
AL Central
Midwest enough.
podcast and get the people an answer.
Yeah. Last question regarding this topic, Jordy. Do the Rays have a spring training facility despite their home place in Florida?
I believe they do. I believe once when I was in Florida a couple years ago, I drove by the Rays spring training facility. Again, I think it's their single A team's stadium,
Okay.
and they just go there to play.
Okay.
Because
What
I think,
about
especially with the Trop, they don't. I know they don't play their spring training games in the Trop.
Yeah, no, I knew that. So then the Miami Marlins are the same?
I would think so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else?
Not that I can think of. I know we'll get into stadium snacks a little closer to opening day because I have some, but they're mainly Phillies related, so I can save that for the Phillies pod. But
yeah, normally we do a all new, like, because normally they have the announcement of new stadium snacks.
I don't think I haven't seen those articles come out yet, so we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that. And if you do, send them to us.
And yeah, exactly. And maybe when we get our MLB, our Major League Baseball insider that we have, who works for the Major League company, maybe if we get that person.
Does he work for MLB or does he work for MLB Network? I keep saying MLB Network.
No, Major League Baseball.
He works in the Major League Baseball offices. That's awesome.
In New York. Yeah.
Yeah, you all will remember who we're talking about soon enough. But Greg, thank you so much for this. This was a ton of fun. I know, kind of like last week with Blue Line Icing, we had to kind of peel out some time because I had a hockey game and whatnot, and I'm glad we were able to get this in. Hopefully, I can get another one in this week. I'm trying to find someone, a dance partner, if you will, to do another division preview because 3 weeks from Friday is official opening day. I know there's the Japan games, I believe, in less than like 2 weeks from tomorrow, I believe. But I don't really count those. Yeah, so I think that's going to do it for us. Make sure you follow us on all the social medias, ThunderBLG on Twitter, Thunderbug Sports on Instagram and Facebook, just like the website, thunderbugsports.com. Greg, you are the man. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Jordy, as always, pleasure is all mine, buddy. I miss you. We got to catch up in person.
We do have to catch up in person. Hopefully soon. Hopefully we find something. Especially once it gets warm. So that's going to do it. Yeah, awesome. That's going to do it for us. For my man, Greg the Prophet Piatelli, I am the G-Man, Jordy Cannell. Have a great night, everybody. And go Phils. Go Sox.
Clearly I'm in preseason form because I wasn't ready for the